The Bruins may be on the Olympic break, but there's still a lot of hockey to go around. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Boston Balling, your home for all things Boston sports. I'm your host, Gabby Maljanian, currently the host of this show, as well as the Locked On Red Sox podcast, which is a daily Boston Red Sox show on the Locked On Podcast Network. So if you want to tune into that show, make sure that you subscribe, follow wherever you listen to podcasts to get my daily Red Sox coverage, and continue to follow like Boston Balling on any podcast platform as well, where I'm discussing all things going on in the Boston sports world. And while things have been going really well this season so far for the Celtics, the Bruins have also been a team that has surprised people more than we thought that they would. They're definitely performing at a higher level than I truly expected them to. And I'm really looking forward to what the future holds for the rest of this season and beyond for the Bruins. Trade deadline coming up in about a month or so. I've talked pretty extensively on the show about what they should do at the trade deadline. I was joined by Nesson's Casey Hudson on the show last week, and she and I also broke down potential trade deadline moves as well. So we'll have to see what they end up doing. Do they pick a lane? Do they buy? Do they sell? Do they do a mix of both? It's kind of where we're at right now, is wondering how much they really do to improve for right now. Do they give up assets to try to compete this year? Do they try to focus on the future, maybe sell off some pieces, maybe some guys who are on expiring contracts or guys who are older, and maybe look towards the future? There's still a lot going around and a lot to wonder about when it comes to this Bruins team and where they are moving forward. So their next game is on February 26th at 7 p.m. at home versus the Blue Jackets. So do still have another, couple weeks here as they progress through the rest of the Olympics before they play again. And I did want to talk a little bit about, on today's show, some of the Bruins players who will be performing in this Winter Olympics. So what's really exciting is that obviously the women's USA hockey team is on a roll, absolutely destroyed everybody in their bracket play here and are moving on as the 1 seed in the quarterfinal round for the Olympics. So that's very exciting. So now we're sitting here hoping the Team USA men can do the same thing, but there are several Bruins players who are participating for different teams, and there's different updates in regards to each of them. So on day 1 of the hockey games, there were scheduled to be a handful of Bruins players slated to take the ice for their countries. In the first game, defenseman Henri Jokiharju played for Finland and made a major gaffe that ultimately led to the game's opening goal. And Bruins goalie Joonas Korpisalo was a scratch for Finland in their 4-1 loss to Slovakia. So unfortunately, he didn't end up playing. And then in the second game of the day, Italy played Sweden, and all eyes were going to be on Sweden and who was and wasn't going to be in the lineup there. Boston defenseman Hampus Lindholm was a late injury addition to Sweden's roster a couple of weeks ago. He was joining center Elias Lindholm playing for their country, but there were questions surrounding whether or not Elias Lindholm was going to play. So he was injured in a game last month against the Nashville Predators in a 3-2 black and gold overtime win. He left the game late in the second period and didn't return with what the team called an upper body injury. He ended up missing the rest of the Bruins games before the break, including the 2 in Florida. So Boston head coach Marco Sturm said that it would be up to Sweden if Lindholm, who went on injured reserve last week, was going to be able to play in the Olympics. So he ended up being activated from injured reserve on Tuesday and returned to the lineup. So ultimately, Sweden made the decision, thought he was good to go, so he was active. He was, in fact, in the lineup for Sweden against Italy, and that's pretty big news for the Bruins because hopefully as long as he gets through the Olympics without an injury, that means he'll be able to return to Boston's lineup after the Olympics are over, which would be huge and very ideal. Hampus Lindholm was also a scratch for Sweden on Tuesday, so going to have to monitor that too. The news wasn't as good for center Pavel Zacha, who was ruled out of the Olympics for Czechia. He was injured one game after Elias Lindholm was injured last month with an upper body injury. So the health of both centers is going to be vital post-Olympics for the Bruins in their push for a postseason berth. So with Zacha, there were a lot of concerns about his status after he got hurt. And the fact that there are still concerns there, that's going to be a big storyline for the Bruins after the Olympics as we get closer and closer to the trade deadline and the Bruins front office making a decision on how they want to go about the trade deadline and the rest of this season. So that's definitely something that's notable. So those were kind of primary updates in regards to Bruins players who are playing in the Olympics. So what's really exciting about the Olympics is that the hockey there is just such a different level. There's just this added passion when it comes to competing for and representing your own country. Obviously, all these guys play with intensity on the ice when they're with their NHL teams, but there's just something about putting that uniform on and representing the country that you are from and being really proud of your country and going and playing for something bigger than your NHL team. So the stakes feel a lot higher and it just feels like a lot more intense version of hockey. And what's really cool about it too is it really brings people together. Like you could be enemies on the ice from one team versus your rival team, for example, and you could have two players who are complete rivals and just don't get along on the ice during the NHL season because they personally have a rivalry or their teams have a rivalry. But then when they get on the ice together, if they're representing the same country in the Olympics, they can put all of those differences aside and be teammates and try to take home a gold medal for their country. So I think that's really cool too, because you don't see as much of this division as you might see in the NHL. And obviously it's fun in the NHL when players fight on the ice. That's a part of the game. It just is what it is. And it makes it really entertaining. But all of a sudden, if, you're playing for Team Canada and somebody else who during the hockey season may play for a rival team of yours is also playing for Team Canada, all of a sudden you're teammates for the next 2 weeks and you have to play with these people and you have to know, okay, we have to work together. And in that case, it just is really cool to see the way that people come together. And I just love the Olympics. I love the format. I love how it's a lot of different people playing for their countries. And you're really seeing top-notch hockey on display on a world stage, because that's the other difference too, is when we're watching our favorite teams play in the NHL, not as many people are consuming it. The Olympics are a worldwide event. So this gives the athletes truly an opportunity to showcase themselves to the rest of the world that doesn't necessarily get to see them on a regular basis. So that's what I love about watching these guys on the Olympic stage. And I'm just really excited to see how these things play out. So on top of the guys that I mentioned, between Elias Lindholm, Hampus Lindholm, Pavel Zacha, for USA, Charlie McAvoy and Jeremy Swayman are playing. So I'm definitely interested in seeing how that goes with that duo there playing for USA. I know Jeremy Swayman is really excited about it, and he actually is somebody they keep showing on TV. He got shown on TV so many times during the opening ceremony, and a bunch of the USA men's hockey team went to the women's game the other day. And during that game, they showed Swayman on TV as well. So he just keeps being in the right place at the right time, I guess. But it will be cool to see him play for Team USA. The goaltending is a huge highlight of the women's hockey team's success in the Olympics. So I'm really hoping that correlates to the men's team and that Swayman is able to deliver in goal. David Pastrnak is also playing for Czechia. It would be really cool to see him be able to succeed. I love David Pastrnak, obviously, as Bruins fans, we all do. And him being a superstar in the NHL is cool because it's always interesting to see how that translates onto this global stage of playing in the Olympics. And for him, he's really proud of his country. He's excited to be playing. He wants to be out there. And I'm just excited to see some of these guys go head to head against each other. So Charlie McAvoy is also actually an alternate captain for Team USA. So that'll be cool to see him be able to lead this team and lead other players from other NHL teams who are also playing for Team USA. And, these guys probably all gain respect for each other along the way when they're playing for their country in the Olympics. And so it's kind of cool because then when they return to their respective teams, they're playing each other again on the ice. They say, oh, hey, we were just teammates. So that's kind of cool. So McAvoy and Swayman teaming up for Team USA. David Pastrnak playing for Czechia. Pavel Zacha, unfortunately, who was supposed to, but was ruled out due to that injury he sustained in late January. Elias Lindholm and Hampus Lindholm playing for Sweden, both having dealt with injury concerns just before the break, but positive signs there. So for Finland, I mentioned defenseman Henri Jokiharju, who is on the Finnish roster, but goaltender Joonas Korpisalo also is on that roster as well, who I brought up earlier. So it's kind of cool having both Bruins goaltenders playing in this Olympics. It would be cool to see them both succeed at the highest level. So prospect Don Lokmelis is playing for Latvia too. He's currently playing for the AHL's Providence Bruins, and he is representing his country as well. So biggest storylines, I'm curious to see how the goaltenders perform if they both are able to succeed at this level on a global stage. David Pastrnak, another one I'm looking forward to. Charlie McAvoy, the alternate captain for USA. So several Bruins players representing, and the Bruins are among the NHL teams with the most representatives, trailing only Florida, Tampa Bay, and Minnesota. So that's pretty cool that our guys here are showing up and showing out to represent their respective countries. So the way it works is the tournament is played with 3-on-3 overtime in the preliminary rounds and 10-minute 3-on-3 overtime in medal round games. So it's going to work a little bit differently once it gets to the elimination part of it, but it's really intense, and this is something that could be really beneficial for these guys. So not only for the guys playing, obviously, because it keeps them moving, it keeps them playing hockey, because it can be hard in the middle of the season to take a break for that long, because then when you get back, you might be kind of rusty. So for these guys, if they're playing, it's good to be able to keep up with it and be able to stay in that hockey mindset, even though you're playing in a different environment and with a new team and with different players that you aren't always used to playing with. It's still a good way to be able to keep your game refined during the break. So anybody who's playing definitely can benefit from this. But Nikita Zadorov is also a guy who could benefit from the Olympic break, because he landed awkwardly against the Montreal Canadiens a couple weeks ago, late in the second period, and it looked like he was dealing with a pretty serious injury at the time. But he ended up coming back out to finish the game in the third period before missing a game 2 nights later against the Rangers. And he has been in the lineup since, so it obviously didn't end up being as serious of an injury as was anticipated originally. But despite being in the lineup, he just hasn't looked like the same player he was before that incident. I mean, he's been good for sure, but you can tell that he's not fully healthy. So this is a time of year where this break could be huge for him, because while guys always need to rest, and rest is important, it feels like he might need the extra rest, because since he hasn't really taken the time off that he truly needs for this, then this probably is something that's truly going to serve as beneficial for him moving forward. So for a guy like him who had that awkward fall, having the break is definitely beneficial, even though he's not playing hockey. Zacha is another one. I know I keep mentioning him because he was supposed to play in the Olympics, but then has been ruled out due to his injury. He's been out since a game against the Flyers last month. And as far as the Bruins go, this could benefit them in the long run. But having him be part of the Olympic team is something that there was a concern about because they didn't want him to risk getting further injured. Because if the Bruins are going to make the playoffs, they're definitely going to need Zacha back in the lineup following the break. So it almost feels like a blessing in disguise that he was ruled out, because rather than having to worry about him right now and him playing in the Olympics, he could focus on getting better for the next part of the season after the break. Because if he were playing on this injury, then from a longevity standpoint down the road, it could risk his ability to play. So Zacha, another one that could benefit from this Olympic break, as well as Alex Steeves. Who saw him contributing the way he has when the season started? Definitely not me. I mean, maybe not even him. He's definitely probably surprising himself a little bit with how well he's playing. He came up in November against his former team, the Toronto Maple Leafs, and scored a goal. And ever since that night, he has become such a pleasant surprise in the lineup in terms of production. That's a cool moment for somebody like that. If you score a goal against your former team, it really helps with a confidence boost. So for him, it's definitely something that has proved to be beneficial, and he just has continued to help elevate this Bruins team. And it earned him a contract beyond this year, which was great, but he has cooled off pretty rapidly too. So the break is definitely coming at the right time for him because he could use it for sure. He was scratched in some games, but having him come back from the break with some confidence would be big for the Bruins. So for him being able to step away for a little bit, figure out what might be going wrong and what he needs to do to get back out there and get himself back in the mode of feeling confident and secure and being able to look more like the player we saw earlier on in the season could be huge for this team down the stretch. And for him, it definitely could just be a confidence thing. It could be fatigue. Maybe he definitely just needs some time away from the sport and a little bit of a break. And this 2-week stretch here, when other players are at the Olympics and he's getting rest, that could be really, really good. So I'm hoping that after this Olympic break is over, the Bruins players come back with their team and they're able to all feel this newfound sense of energy and newfound sense of confidence, so that rather than coming out of the gates feeling a little fatigued or a little bit disoriented because they haven't played in a while, hopefully that this team is able to go out there and play good hockey rather than starting off a little bit rusty like some other teams may. So this break is beneficial for specific players in particular who may be coming back from injury or just need to regain some confidence, but also the guys who are playing in the Olympics. As long as they don't get hurt, it's beneficial for them to continue to play at the level they are playing at, because hopefully then when the break is over, they can go back to their team and be in full form. So I'm really excited to see what these teams do throughout the rest of the Olympics, and I'm excited to see these Bruins players really step up. But coming up, I'm going to be talking about the Beanpot tournament because some Bruins prospects shined in Boston College's victory. Don't forget to subscribe to Boston Balling on any podcast platform so that you can get new content Monday through Thursday, talking about the Red Sox, Celtics, Patriots, Bruins, you name it, whatever your choice is. I will be here Monday through Thursday, Monday with some Patriots talk, Tuesday, Celtics, Wednesday, Bruins, and Thursday, Red Sox to cap it off, along with some fun guests along the way. So you can find it on any podcast platform, as well as Locked On Red Sox, my daily Red Sox show for the Locked On Podcast Network. Additionally, you can follow me on social media at Gabby Maljanian on Twitter and at Gabby_Maljanian10 on Instagram. And my two shows are also on Twitter at Boston Balling and at LO_Red Sox. So make sure you're following, liking, subscribing, and all of that fun jazz. All eyes are on the Winter Olympics right now in Italy, and several Bruins players are representing their country. So it will be another couple weeks before the Bruins play a game as a team again, but it's always so fun to watch Team USA hockey go at it against other countries. And it's fun to see everybody being so proud of the country they're representing and to see how they do as well. So not only will I be following along with Team USA, but I'll also be following along with the Bruins players who are contributing for their respective country. But speaking of players who contribute, Boston College had its victory in the men's Beanpot tournament recently, and it was a lot of fun, especially for some Boston Bruins prospects, guys who are up and coming, and it's really cool to always see those guys shine on a bigger stage. So even though the Bruins are on their break right now for the Winter Olympics, trying to compete for the gold medal, the college hockey season is still ongoing, and Boston College won the Beanpot for the first time since 2016 after defeating rival Boston University 6-2 at TD Garden earlier this week. And James Hagens, who's the Bruins' top prospect in 2025, number 7 overall draft pick, ended up tallying 5 points in 2 Beanpot games, including a pair of assists on Monday, and he was actually named MVP of the tournament. So that's super exciting for him. The thing about Hagens that I'm most looking forward to is his ability to just be a dual threat player, a player who can do all kinds of different things on the ice, and a guy who just works really hard. So I'm really looking forward to some of the big things he might do upon graduating from college and moving on to the professional hockey scene. Also, Dean Letourneau, who the Bruins selected at 24 overall in the 2024 draft, scored in the third period on Monday, too. So he also got in on the action. And what does it say about these two players? That the moment isn't too big for them. They have responded well to being on a bigger stage, playing with the most competitive college hockey players, and being able to play in an environment in which a lot of people are watching. And that's a good sign for when they do move on to professional hockey, because obviously it's a whole new game when you are moving up to that next level. And so for them, these guys being able to perform at a high level like that is a good sign and bodes well for their professional careers. So both Letourneau and Hagens contributed in the action. Andre Gasseau, who was a 7th round pick for the Bruins in 2021, had 4 points overall in the tournament and scored 2 power play goals in the title game. One of those goals got the Eagles on the board in the first period. So this is a guy, again, who contributed in different ways. We like the guys who aren't one-dimensional and can do a variety of different things. And that's a category that Gasseau falls into, is that he's able to do multiple things. So 2 power play goals in the title game is huge for him. So Hagens leads BC with 31 points total, 15 goals and 16 assists in 24 games. Letourneau is second with 28 points in 26 games. He did not score a single goal in 36 games last year, but already has 16 this season. His improvement has been one of the most encouraging developments for the entire Bruins organization in the 2025-26 season. Both Hagens and Letourneau are nominees for the Hobey Baker Award, which is awarded annually to the top player in men's college hockey. How cool would that be if one of them wins that award? That would just be a true representation of the work that they put in. And it would also be a true representation of the future for the Bruins and how exciting it is to think about all these exciting young players who are up and coming in the future. And I've talked a lot about the future and the Boston Bruins future in particular, because we're starting to see a lot more contributions this season from a lot of the younger players. And these guys could fall into that category when they eventually go on to play professional hockey. So that's definitely very exciting to think about. And Gasseau has tallied 15 points, 6 goals, 9 assists in 13 games. So these 3 players are definitely all ones to watch among Bruins prospects. I'm really looking forward to see how they continue to perform for the rest of the college season and as they transition into becoming professional hockey players. The Bruins have really upgraded their prospect pool over the last year, and it definitely bodes well for their ability to remain a playoff caliber team well into the future, because the goal is always to do what you can to continue to improve and try to be a playoff team. And it's about longevity, right? You don't want to acquire players who are going to just help you in the long term, but may not necessarily be the right fit in the longer term. You want to try to get players who are not only going to help your team currently, but are also going to help you in the future, because then you can feel more confident moving forward about the players that you have and the players that are going to make a difference longer term. Because if you look at the roster you have and then you think about the future and the prospects that you have coming up eventually, you can say, wow, we could be a playoff team this year, but even if we are, we're not going to be entering rebuild mode anytime soon, because we have a lot of young talent in the wings waiting to come up that are going to help set the tone for a really nice future. And that's what the Boston Bruins are trying to do. They are trying to be a team that can compete right now, but they also don't want to overstep the boundary too much of making sure that they're also honing in on their future and what that can hold, and making sure that they're protecting both the right now and what's best for the organization in the longer term to make sure that they stay relevant. So it's really exciting to think about all of these guys who have shown a lot of ability to step up down the road for this Bruins team. So I'm excited to see how things go for the Bruins, not only in the Olympics, but also after the Olympics, because that few week stretch after the Olympics, that's when a lot of things are going to be happening between the trade deadline, them having to win hockey games, and it's going to become very apparent and very clear in a short matter's time what direction this team is going in. And if they decide to clear some salaries at the trade deadline and bring in young talent, that doesn't necessarily mean they don't believe in the team this season. It just means they're also trying to look out for their future as well. And they're also trying to make sure that they do what's best for the Boston Bruins as a whole down the road. And if they decide they're going to add one or two pieces to the team to boost them for right now, that's also something that they could do, because they could say, well, this team has exceeded expectations this year, so they deserve a shot to really truly try to make a playoff run. So I wouldn't mind that logic either if that's what they decide to do as well. So there are different avenues that they could take, but looking ahead at the schedule coming up here, like I said, their first game back from the Olympic break is on February 26th at 7 p.m. against the Blue Jackets. Then they go to the Flyers 2 days later. Then they host the Penguins on March 3rd, and then go to the Predators on March 5th. And the trade deadline is at that time as well. So by then, we really will know what this Bruins roster looks like come these last couple months of the season. But it's really exciting to think about where they're at compared to where we thought they would be going into this season. I truly thought this would be more of a rebuilding year, maybe a team that not necessarily is counted in, and maybe a team that is trying to get its bearings and wouldn't be a bad hockey team by any means, but also wouldn't be a team that's fighting for a playoff spot. I thought maybe they'd be somewhere in the middle and wouldn't make the playoffs this year, but would grow a lot to be excited for next year. So the fact that they are in a position to where they have a chance to make the playoffs right now with this team is definitely very exciting. And I can't help but feel excited about that, as well as excited for the future. So we'll have to see how all of this plays out. But I do appreciate you tuning into Boston Balling Monday through Thursday to get the latest going on with all things in Boston sports. You won't want to miss it, because I will be bringing some guests on along the way to talk about these respective teams, reputable guests as well. So make sure that you continue to tune in there and continue to tune into Locked On Red Sox Monday through Friday on any podcast platform as well, if you want daily Boston Red Sox news. So make sure you continue to like, follow, subscribe. Let's go Bruins. Let's go USA. Let's go Bruins in the Olympics. You name it, whatever you want to think about there and say to end this is up to you. But I'll catch you next time.